Good day and welcome to Natural Science and Health 2 exam-based contact classes for 2019 and the exams that is for 2020. My name is Maria Spandeni and I'm your tutor for Natural Science and Health 2. So I would like to welcome you all to these exam-based contact classes. So before we go deeper into the details of the contact class, I would like to bring it to your attention that in case you have questions about the exam or about what I'm going to present today, or you just want to have clarity on few things, you can call me at 081 2612 or you can send me an email at shipandenim@yahoo.co.uk. So I would also like to bring it to your attention, when you are preparing for your exam, you should pay attention to the learning outcome of every unit. I know there are quite a lot of units in this module, but you have to pay attention to all the learning outcome on each unit. And with this, as you get to understand the learning outcome, you have to capture what you are actually supposed to learn from each unit. And because most of the questions are actually, or all the questions are actually from this unit. So, and another point is that you should try to read the instructions very carefully, because I notice that some people don't read questions carefully and they tend to either answer questions that are just knowing that they are answering questions, but then you can understand or you can sense that they didn't read the question carefully. So, and as a teacher, you should always use practical examples whenever you are explaining something, and that actually helps with strengthening your answers, and make sure that the examples you are giving, they are actually relevant. And also provide sufficient answers, meaning that you do not have to don't write too much or too little. So, and that you can be guided by the marks that are allocated to each question. Because when you get the question paper, check what is it a discuss, explain, or a list type of question, and then check the marks that are allocated, because this will guide you on how much you should write. And I know our handwritings are not all the same, and some of us, we have very bad handwriting, but actually write neatly. So your work should be very tidy, and prepare for exams as much as you can. Okay, now we are going to go details about the content. So this is now your exam-based contact class. Teaching methods. So teaching method is one of the units of this module, and as you know that there are actually different methods that a teacher can apply, or you can apply when teaching. So, and what you have to do here, you have to understand the teaching methods that are there and how you can actually apply these teaching methods in your classroom to make it very successful. So a teaching method encompasses of the principles and the methods for instruction. So the choice of the teaching method or methods that you are going to apply actually depend largely on the kind of information that you want to teach. What are you or the skills that you want to that is being taught. What is it about? Because some lessons are better demonstrated, and some you can have a general discussion in class. So that actually depends on the information or skill that is being taught, and it's also influenced by the ability of your learners, or the ability and the eagerness of your learners. So there are actually different methods. One of the methods that you can apply is brainstorming. Brainstorming is actually a process of generating multiple ideas, and this method is also used to stimulate thinking and creativity with your learners. So when you are carrying out this method, you should be able to actually have a lesson that, or a topic that students or learners are able actually actually they should, this topic should actually stimulate their thinking and creativity. So another example is the demonstration. Demonstration is actually performing of when you are performing an activity so that learners can observe how it is done. So what you should do here, you should be able to do what you want to demonstrate. So the best thing is also just to do it before your learners come to class. Try to rehearse and do it to see whether things are going to run perfectly well as you expect. So carefully plan the demonstration and keep it simple. And as you are demonstrating, explain to learners throughout the whole process. So explain through enough to meet whatever objectives you want to achieve. So that is actually one of the teaching method. And another teaching method is a large group discussion. This is mainly based on questions and answers. So it improves the art of seeking information and actually also stimulate critical thinking or stimulate thinking. So develop questions that are related to the learning objective, which are designed to stimulate thinking, and you then have to have your learners and move your learners to the next topic or to the next level as you are discussing them. I mean, as you are discussing the topic that you are covering. So it's best to use open-ended questions and have a clear sequence of questions, because when you want to stimulate thinking and you have this question and answer sessions, you want to have them stimulate questions. You start with easy questions, and you then as you are discussing then you can bring in more questions that need critical thinking. So you develop with this, you need to also have to develop group facilitation skills for yourself. You should be able to handle these group discussions, so you need facilitation skills in order to manage the interactions as well as the time and the process effectively. So other methods that you can employ or that you can apply is like self-awareness test. You can also do exercises and just the presentations where you prepare presentations and give like and teach or give a lecture to your learners. So that's just the teaching methods. So with these methods, you should be able to describe the methods that are there, or you should actually be able to explain how they are carried out, or how one can carry out this teaching method effectively, or discuss them, or you should just be able to list them, because I'm not telling you what you should expect, but with that teaching method, or with that topic, you should be able either to describe. If you're asked to describe, you should be able to describe it. You should be able to explain, or maybe list. Maybe you are just asked to list some of the teaching methods that can be applied, and then you should be able to do that. Yeah, so we are moving on to the next. We also have a unit on self-esteem. So self-esteem is actually how an individual judge or feel about themselves. So how individual feel or judge, individual judge or feel about the self. And we also have a term of self-concept, that is a person's what a person think and believe about the self as well. So how people actually think about themselves. So self-esteem is a person's overall self-awareness or sense of self-worth, and is formed according to the person or person's value system. So this self-esteem actually affects emotions and behavior. So how a teenager actually view him or herself affect their emotions, and therefore consequently affecting their behavior. People with high self-esteem tend to be more open. They are more open to new ideas and values, and they feel more in control of their values. They are willing to assist, to rent, even to volunteer to do some work. However, when a person has a low self-esteem, they are prone to develop a feeling of isolation. They tend to be isolated. They also have a feeling of loneliness. These people actually struggle to make conversation with other people and feel there's that feel of awkwardness when they are in social situation, and they tend to withdraw from social events or where you have a lot of people. So adolescents tend to compare themselves with their peers. So as I said, self-esteem encompasses of both self-confidence and self-acceptance. So there are many factors that influence child self-esteem. So apart from just being able to discuss how self-esteem affects emotions and behavior, you should also be able to list some of the factors that influences child self-esteem. And these factors are like, for instance, social comparison, personal achievements, peer relations, and parental practices. These are some of the factors that actually influences child's self-esteem. But there are other factors that you can add to that list. I'm just mentioning a few. So another topic is about dealing with emotions. Emotions are experienced or can be experienced as positive, that are good uplifting feelings, or can be negative, that are hurtful, like depressing and upsetting feelings. So however, one need to manage emotions. Teachers have to be sensitive to learners' emotions and foster a relationship of understanding and acceptance. How can we, as teachers, help adolescents to handle their emotions? We have to let them. This can be achieved by let them verbalize their feelings. Verbalizing their feeling, we should display it can be achieved by displaying a sense of humor. It can also be achieved by being supportive and provide them opportunity to cry if they have to cry, and provide them opportunity to release their pain emotions through physical activities like going out for soccer or netball or whatever physical activities that they are interested, even just jogging. So emotions should not be suppressed. So let them, or let these adolescents express their emotions. So with this, it helps the person to release his or her frustrations, resentment in an appropriate way. And to effectively deal with their emotions, learner must actually first know themselves and the value they adhere to. And we need to empower adolescents to manage their emotions by guiding them in their knowledge in their knowledge actually to know where to get or to find help or further information. So with this topic, you should be able actually to explain how to manage emotions, or explain how teachers can help adolescents to handle their emotion, or you may be asked to discuss. So you just have to know that they can actually help adolescents to handle their emotions by letting them verbalize their feeling. We have to to display a sense of humor, provide support, and then just provide the opportunity for them to release their emotions. And then we have also to let them not suppress their emotions, because that can also be dangerous. We have to let them release their emotions in a much appropriate way. Yeah. So, and then we also have a topic on food chain, and food web. So this actually illustrates the flow of energy. Every living thing needs energy in order to survive. Yeah. So the flow of, we have food chain, that is a flow with just one path of energy, as animals find their food. And there is also a food web which shows how plant and animal are connected in many ways to help them all survive. So you might be asked to compare the food chain and food web, or you may be asked to analyze these differences and supply relevant examples. So when you go in the exam, you should have some few examples of food chain and few examples of food web, just in case you are asked to give examples of a food web, then you should be able to note that down. Instead, as long as you have some kind of examples of food web or food chain. So as we said, food web is actually a network of interrelated food chain in a given area, and a food chain is a series of organisms showing feeding relationship. It usually begins with a green plant, that's a producer, and the producer is eaten by a consumer, and then it's the chain continues. So food chain follow a single path as animals eat each other as they get their food to survive. I think this is one of the very simple, easy topic, but I tend to realize that people actually in the exam, they fail to give appropriate or proper examples, or to even explain what's food web or what is the food chain, because sometimes you're not asked to differentiate between the two, but you are maybe asked to actually just explain what a food web is and provide a relevant example. So another topic is about photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a process by which plants actually convert carbon dioxide into their food by using the energy derived from the sun. So the most essential element of this process, which is photosynthesis, is sunlight. As you can see, we have sunlight, then there is water and carbon dioxide, and also we do have chlorophyll that makes the plants green. So the process of photosynthesis, you should be able to analyze the process of photosynthesis in plant, and you should be able to name the end product of photosynthesis, that is actually oxygen and sugar. So when you're analyzing this process, like for instance, you can see that you can explain that the plant actually draw water through its roots, and then the leaves take up carbon dioxide from the air, and the leaves trap energy from the sunlight. The plant uses the energy of sunlight to turn water and carbon dioxide into sugar and oxygen, and then the plant uses the sugar for growth. So with this, you should just be able to understand, to explain the process, and you should understand or know the elements that are needed in the end product of photosynthesis. So we will also be able to understand the importance of photosynthesis. It is important for human and animal as it is important for plants, but you should be able to explain how that is important to human and animals as it is important to plants. You should also know the equation of photosynthesis. We do have the equation, as you can see on the PowerPoint. Your carbon dioxide plus water, and they use sunlight, and then they produce glucose and oxygen. So you should know it in words as well as in the equation. And the next topic is the classification of animals. Animals are actually classified by scientists using into different groups using certain criteria, and some of these criteria they use the backbone. So they when they are classifying these animals, they look at the backbone. Does it have a backbone or it doesn't have the backbone? So backbone, is it invertebrate or vertebrate? And then they actually look at how body parts of the animals are arranged, and asymmetric and bilateral symmetry and lateral symmetry. And then they look at the internal features and as well as the external features, looking at the organisms, how they relate to each other, in terms of internal structures as well as the external structures. So how these organisms are related to each other, that may have the similar intestinal structures that actually allow them to live, grow, survive, and actually reproduce. And then they also now look at their external similarities. They are also classified based on their feeding pattern, how they feed. Other types of behavior that scientists use is actually how they eat, and this can be either a carnivore, or what the carnivores eat, and the herbivores that only eat plants, or the omnivores that eat both meat and plants. And here you should also be, with proper examples, as it can be seen there. You have asymmetric that they don't have an orderly body plan. Examples, the sponge. And then you have the larger symmetry, that the body parts are arranged in a circle around the central point. And you have the bilateral asymmetry, which is like a mirror of the other part. The body contains two similar halves that it can be cut in the middle, and you have two similar parts, similar halves. Another topic is the sunlight. There are several topics there, but I took a few topics only based on what I think it's students have been either not explaining them clearly. So there is a topic on sunlight. Sunlight is actually a mixture of different colors, and sunlight appears as white, but it can be separated into spectrum of colors. So what you have to understand here is how sunlight can actually be separated into different colors. It can be separated by using a plasma, or it can be separated by using a compact disc, or by a drop of oil on water. That's how this sunlight can be separated into different colors. And you need to also know what colors is sunlight separated into. You have different colors like red, orange to blue, green, yellow, indigo, and violet. So then you have those colors that the white light can be separated into. So, and one of the most important thing is to know that how to demonstrate, or how you can demonstrate how these colors can be, or the sunlight can be, or the light can be separated in spectrum of colors. So, for instance, if you are asked to demonstrate how the prisma can be used, you should be able to explain that. As you can see on the slides, there is demonstrations on how that can be separated by a plasma. And I also forgot to mention that hitting a glass on an angle, it forms a reflection of light, and the color of light actually depends on how it's arranged, actually depends on its wavelength. So if you're asked to demonstrate on the prisma, just know that what actually materials that you need, and how you are going to place them in order to see the different spectrum of colors. For instance, to just briefly, to explain how this can be done by prisma, you need a prisma, you need a project screen, you need a light source, and you need a slit. So what you need to do is, as you can see, you actually need to place a projector on a screen in front of the prisma, and you place a light source at a 90 degree angle on the other side of the prisma. and you generate a slit on a slit. You generate a O and place it in front of the light source and turn the light source on, which can be your lamp, and point it at the so that it faces the prisma. So the prisma will then reflect the light, and as it passes through the prisma, then you can have different colors, as you can see on the board. This is just how briefly how one can actually demonstrate by using the prisma. Another topic is on distillation. Distillation is a process of purifying a liquid by by a process of heating and cooling. So the action of purifying a liquid by a process of, it's actually just an action of purifying a liquid by a process of heating and cooling. So with that, we are saying it's simply the heating of a substance or a combination of substance, whether in a vessel or not, and you drive off one of more volatile components. So this process, distillation process, distillation is a process of separating components or a mixture based on different heating points. So with this, as you can see on the slides, there is a process of distillation. All you need to do to understand that, you should be able to mention some of the laboratory apparatus or equipments, apparatus that are actually used in the distillation. You should be able actually to define the term distillation, and you should also be able to demonstrate by either explaining it, or you may be asked by also just to by sketch, where you just need to, you don't have to be very perfect. I know I can't draw as well, but you should be able to display your understanding or how the process takes place. So this the distillation is actually there are actually different type of distillation. You have a simple distillation, you have a fractional distillation, there's a steam distillation and a vacuum distillation, which can actually be used in different industries. And the application of these different different application of distillations in different industry. So the distillation is used in many commercial processes, such as the production of distilled water, and the production of alcohol, the production of perfume and essential oil, and the production of petroleum products. So what you need to understand here is just understand the process, or you should be able to define the process of distillation and able to either demonstrate how the simple or the distillations can be done, and you may need to know the material or the apparatus, laboratory apparatus that can be used when using this process, and how, or the application of these distillations in different commercial or in commercial processes. Oopsie. Okay, then we have a topic on water, wind, and their pollutions. With water, you should be able to actually give the basic properties of water, like it's tasteless, is colorless, is odorless, is nearly colorless with a hint of blue. And you should be able to explain the phases of water cycle, as you can see on your slides, the process of or the phases, different phases of water cycle: evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, as well as correction. These are quite easy terms, but I noticed that some people fail to actually just explain these processes or these phases very well. So, and you should be able to know the sources of water pollution, which can be organic impurities or inorganic impurities, or just biological impurities, and how water can actually be purified to make it drinkable, And so we do have different purification techniques, like for instance using iodine, chlorine, or just simply by filtering or boiling. So you should actually familiarize with yourself with all these techniques that are very clear in your study guide. So, and then there is wind. So wind can be beneficial or can also be harmful. So you should be able to explain the benefit of wind. For instance, it cools us on summer days, and it can also be used for some sport. Some sports are done using wind, like surfing. It can also be important for dispersing the seeds. It also improves the quality of air we breathe in, and it's important for wind energy and also to move the clouds. So, but then wind can also, we do have distinct dangers of hurricanes and tornadoes like the storm. So you should also be able to understand or to explain the dangers of this storm. And there is actually, you should also know the sources of air pollution, like burning of fossil fuel by agricultural activities, the exhaust from factories and industries, as well as mining operations. So you should be able to mention some of the sources of air pollution. And as well as this, apart from the ones that are listed there, you can also add indoor air pollution. So with this topic, you should be able to discuss, define, or just simply to mention or explain. So you might be asked to mention the sources of air pollution or sources of water pollution, or just to mention the methods that can be used to purify water. Or maybe you are just asked to discuss the basic properties of water or the phases of water cycle. In addition to that, we do have wildlife. You have to understand the values of wildlife. Why is it important to Namibia or to us? So you should be able to understand the importance or to discuss or explain the importance of wildlife. That is actually important for economic, they do have economic importance, like we do have consumptive and non-consumptive uses. For instance, the biological roles or processes is involved in biological processes or ecological roles, and is also used in consumptive. It means they can provide us with meat, and tourists comes in the country because of our wildlife. So you should be able to explain the importance of wildlife. So they also have nutritional values, ecological roles, as well as social cultural significance. So all you need to do there is to just be able to explain the values or the importance of wildlife. There are some species that are endangered. These are actually native species that faces a significant risk of extinction in the near future throughout all or because of a significant portion of its range. So these are just animals or is a native species that faces a significant risk of extinctions in the near future throughout all or a significant portion of its range. Such species may be declining in a number due to threats such as habitat destruction. Maybe their habitat are distracted, and maybe because of climate change, can be because of pressure from invasive species. And these some of the examples of the endangered species in Namibia are wild dog, black rhino, puku, and all them. So, and we have our big five. The big five, you should be able to mention the big five. So, and then there is ecosystem and human activity. Human activity actually influences the ecosystem negatively, especially when it's performed in an excessive or unsustainable way. So you should be able to mention this to list some of the human activities that may influence an ecosystem negatively. We do have agriculture, industry, mining, as well as fishing. So global warming, pollution, and the extinction of species are some of the consequences of such human behavior. So you should also be able um, to actually explain how to prevent the destruction of habitat and preserve biodiversity. So how do we, or how can you prevent the destruction? How can we prevent the destruction of habitat and preservation of biodiversity? So we can be achieved by reducing or eliminating the use of household chemical and pesticide. It can also be done by recycling as much as we can, reduce the amount of waste produced, reduce carbon print, and choose food that are locally grown and grown sustainably. So you should be able to do that. So within this topic, which is ecosystem and human activity, you may just be asked to analyze or maybe describe, explain, mention, or you should be able to actually define. You might be asked to define what the ecosystem is, or you may be just asked to mention how to prevent the destruction of habitat and preserve biodiversity, or just to mention the human activities that can influence the ecosystem negatively. That can be agriculture, industries, mining, and fishing. We do have another topic. I don't want to go without mentioning anything about our health. So this next topic is about smoking and lungs. So the long-term exposure of lungs to air and smoke can actually lead to respiratory diseases, lung cancer, and other diseases. So actually what it does is that smoking destroys the tiny hair which actually line the upper airway and protect against infections. So when lungs' natural cleaning and repair system is damaged, the germs and dirt and chemical from cigarettes can actually destroy, from cigarette that can actually stay inside the lungs and then cause a high risk of chronic cough, chest infections, as well as lung cancer. It can also permanently damage the alveoli, the air sacs, and in the alveoli in the lungs, making it hard to breathe. So when the alveoli are actually damaged, the person will have short breath and they will feel more exhausted. So this actually it makes the heart pump much harder to give the body the oxygen that actually in need. So with this, you should just be able to understand the danger of smoking, to how smoking can actually damage the lungs. So it destroys the tiny hair and it can also damage the alveoli, and you should actually be able to explain that in details. So another topic is about the heart. So with this topic, in most cases, I would just probably ask you to actually explain the functions of the heart chamber. And there are actually 4 chambers. And with this, when you are explaining the functions, you should actually mention the chamber first and then explain what it does. So for instance, we have the right atrium, which receives oxygen poor blood from the body, and it pumps it to the right ventricle. And then the right ventricle pumps the oxygen poor blood to the lungs. And then the right atrium receives the oxygen-rich blood from the lung and pump it to the left ventricle, and then the left ventricle pump the rich blood or the oxygenated blood to the body. So this is quite easy, but I notice that I don't get satisfactory answers because the people actually just tend to dump in or throw in definition of functions without actually explaining what exactly the chamber that they are actually what chamber are they actually explaining. So with that, you just need to know the chambers, and when you are explaining the functions, mention the chamber and what it actually does, what the functions of that chamber. And with that, in that slides, you have different I gave you different actually all in all it's the same, you just have different ways of explaining it, and that should be clear. The light deuterium will receive the deoxygenated blood from the blood and how it flows, so you should be able to explain that in details. I thank you very much. You can call me at 081-2612-950 for in case you have questions or you just want clarity on few things.